Oh. Alright, let's see what this game, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice, has to offer. I've been waiting for this game since E3, so this is gonna be interesting. No. No! No, it can't be! No! No! Let's go back to the past. 1 year ago. At E3 2018, we got a trailer for a new game coming out called Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. And it looked really interesting. Everyone was excited to see a new shinobi-based game with an interesting premise. But I was cautious, as one should always be. The trailer looked good, but there was something off about how the game looked. Like it was something I've played before. And it turns out, this game was developed by the infamous studio, From Software. Konnichiwa everyone, this is Sephiroth Sword 57. Long time no see. In today's video, we will be talking about Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. Let's rock!
Sweet dreams.
For those of you who don't know, From Software is the company that gave us the awful Dark Souls series, along with the repulsive Bloodborne. Some of the best example of bad game design and story writing comes from these games, and this time they're trying to disguise themselves once again by making a shinobi game set in the Sengoku era of Japan to lure people in. Unfortunately, after the trailer got released, it got people hyped, and none of those people actually did the research to find out who actually made the game. So they were tricked from the very beginning. All true Japan fans would agree that From Software is a stain on Japanese action game culture. High-tempo action with awesome stylish fast-paced combat is the way to go when making a Japanese action game, and not something like this. As someone with an extensive knowledge of Japanese history and culture, let's see if these Western-inspired developers actually know what they're doing. But most likely they won't. Let's go. Now, one of the first things that really confuses me about this game is, why do I have a katana? Now, all of you Westerners who are watching this video, you're probably thinking something like, hey Seth-sama, what do you mean? This game is a Japanese game, it's set in Japan, and katanas are super cool, and one of the most powerful weapons in the world. Well, I do agree that the katana is really sugoi, but the problem here is not the weapon, it's our main character. Let me explain. If you've been paying attention during ninjutsu class, you would know that Togakure Ryusoke Masaki Hatsumi, the Grandmaster of Ninjutsu and the Bujikan organization, would say, "This is dumb. The preferred weapon of the shinobi of feudal Japan was in fact the ninjato, a straight blade with a square guard, usually of length less than 60 centimeters. And if we take a look at the game, we can see that Okami-dono is not in fact holding a ninjato, but instead a katana, the iconic blade of the honorable Japanese samurai. Now this is usually where I turn the game off completely, but since I'm an objective reviewer, I had to see how much worse this title can get. Now luckily, the shinobi is masters of all kinds of weapons imaginable, so of course they will be able to handle the magnificent katana. This is evidence enough to suggest that Sekiro was actually supposed to be a samurai game, and that the main character of Okami was at the start of this game's development actually a samurai. But From Software can't design good combat, so in a last-second effort, they tried to change it into a shinobi game with stealth mechanics to hide the fact that the combat is not on par with Devil May Cry 5. But of course, those are not the only flaws of this game. Let's start with the story. The game starts with a cutscene that looks exactly like the ones that were in Dark Souls and Bloodborne. You would think that From Software would learn from their mistakes, but no, of course they don't. It's too long and boring and doesn't tell us anything, which seems to be a staple of From Software games. Anyway, the game starts with this lady who drops a letter down this well where the main character is Okamidono, or Sekiro as he is called by the Tengu of Ashina, or Isshin Ashina, who is actually the true identity of the Tengu, as his mask and the clothes can be found in the room in Ashina Castle. Now you should expect an explanation to why he's in this place to begin with. But of course it's From Software we're talking about, so we probably have to dig around in the manual to figure out what's actually going on. Looks like I have to look up a digital version of the manual, since From Software is so incompetent that they can't even include a physical one with the game. But even after looking through all the information about Sekiro on the official website, there is no information whatsoever about the well and how Okamidono ended up there. So even after all this unnecessary research, you will never find out what's actually going on. Not even after finishing the game, in fact. All we know about Okamidono is that he is a shinobi, and his duty is to protect Kuro-chan, the divine child, who has been abducted. She holds the key to immortality, which is the reason why she gets abducted all the time, and why Okamidono can't die. But we will get back to Okamidono's character a little bit later. After catching up to Kuro-chan in the tower bathing in moonlight, she asks him about something from the past, which Okamidono have no clue to what she's talking about. Strange. After abducting Kuro-chan, we head to the exit, but then Okamidono gets his left arm cut off by Genichiro Ashina, who we will talk more about later. And then he abducts Kuro-chan. Okamidono then wakes up in an old dilapidated temple, and with a new left arm, a prosthetic in fact. And we are then introduced to the sculptor, Shoujo, an old retired shinobi, whose name means orangutan. He is also known as the Bounding Monkey of the Sunken Valley, and fancies the shinobi axe, which can be found in the shrine in Hirata Estate. He is also missing his left arm, and was the previous user of the prosthetic that Okamidono now is wearing. He has no need for it anymore, since he is an old man, and his shinobi days are over. We are then told to go attend to our duties, as Kuro-chan's protector. So here is where the game actually starts. Like I mentioned before, Sekiro is a game that tries to hide its bad combat with stealth mechanics. Similar to how you would hide a turd in the toilet after dumping another turd on top of it. Okamidono is such a clumsy and useless shinobi, who gets spotted all the time and make loud noises when he's supposed to be quiet. So the stealth is just frustrating, but it is something you have to get used to, because like I said before, the combat is literally unplayable. Here I tried to pick up this item, but because of the slippery, floaty and stiff controls, I almost fall off, because the button to hang down from the ledge is the same one for picking up items. Very dumb decision. If you are a fan of the Super Sugoi JRPG genre, you would be familiar with level grinding, item grinding, and so on. These are powerful moments for the player, as you will see your party grow in strength, as well as gaining powerful equipment. But in Sekiro, grinding for XP is completely useless. All you get are these skill points, which you can use to gain new attacks, but they don't make Okamidono stronger in any way. It just gives him another type to damage enemies. Garbage game design. Imagine if you had to buy abilities from an XP shop in Final Fantasy VII. That would be awful, but since that is a good game made by a superior game designer, that would of course never happen. You also gain Sen for defeating enemies, but all you can do with it is buy useless consumable items. Where are all the cool blades to increase attack damage and stylish armor to reduce damage taken from enemy blows? Well, listen to this. There is no equipment in Sekiro. What? Yes, you heard me right. Not a single piece of armor, accessory, or katana can be equipped. You can only rely on the stuff you start the game with. This has to be the worst decision in JRPG history. So after playing for a while, I encountered the first boss of the game, General Gyobu Masataka Oniwa, also known as Gyobu the Demon. After the fight, we are given the memory of Gyobu Oniwa, and here is something that really frustrates me. The memory is used to upgrade your attack power, but why do we get this now? This is something that is desperately needed before a boss fight, and not after. But what is up with these memories? You can only use them at these sculpture idols. Why didn't they just give you the attack power right after you win the battle and gain the memory? You actually have to go and activate it for it to work. Another strange decision of bad game design. Why are you given memories as an item? It's not like it's a physical object that you can hold in your hands. That is just crazy talk. And why are these memories referred to as distant? Okamidono, this battle just happened. What is this about? Well, it's pretty obvious at this point that Okamidono is an old, dumb, senile man. He doesn't remember the events that happened 3 years ago. He doesn't remember battles that just happened. He has grey hair, not to mention that he also hangs around with a bunch of other old men. Those being Isshin Ashina and Shoujo. The only young people of the party is Kuro-chan and Emma-chan. Kuro-chan being the person you need to protect, and Emma-san is the nurse, so she takes care of Isshin Ashina and Shoujo, and now Okamidono, since they are too old to take care of themselves. She is the caretaker of these 3 old senile men. If this was modern times, Emma would be working at a retirement home, where she would be taking care of all 3 of them. Was this game made for old people? Now, I move on from the battle arena where we fought Gyobu Masataka Oniwa, and after a while, we reach Ashina Castle, but not before we run into these small assassins from Senpo Temple. I have no idea why they included these foul creatures in this game. I've been trying to figure out if they're a classic common yokai with an awful design to not recognize them. But there are no mythical creature in Japanese history that resembles them at all. So that means that they added an original yokai into their game instead of basing it off of an existing yokai that we all can recognize and approve of. Extremely disrespectful of your own culture, From Software. You don't know enough about Japanese history and culture to be able to add anything that makes sense to the general public, so you decided to just make stuff up, like some kind of fairy tale instead. Disgusting! I think now is a perfect time to talk about these sculpture idols. You can also use these idols to travel between them at any time. Yes, more evidence for lazy bad level design. But that is not all. Why did they decide to let you teleport between all these idols? Which of course is taken from bad Western games, but it doesn't make sense. This is the Sengoku era of Japan, and yet here we have a futuristic mechanic that shouldn't work yet. I thought I was playing Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice, not Star Trek. But there is something that FromSoft didn't implement despite being really obvious. Something they decided not to do since they were too lazy. They skipped an important mechanic that is featured in all good JRPGs. The airship! If you're going to be able to travel between these idols, why not just have an airship and fly around with all your party members, Isshin Ashina, Shoujo, Emma-san, and Kuro-chan. What a miserable missed opportunity. So we make our way to the top of Ashina Castle, walking around on the rooftops, and we get to encounter Genichiro Ashina for a second time, who is actually Isshin Ashina's grandson, who is also the Tengu of Ashina, because we can find the Tengu disguise in Isshin Ashina's quarters. Isshin is very sick and can't rule Ashina the way he used to, so Genichiro Ashina is now the current ruler of Ashina, and he is very strong, but this time we're ready. After defeating him and killing him, he's still able to just stand up like nothing happened. This is because Genichiro Ashina had been drinking the rejuvenating waters that flows from Fountainhead Palace and gives you immortality. We can see that from the monks in Senpo Temple who also drank the waters. But this is not the same kind of immortality that Okamidono possesses, since he was blessed with it from Kuro-chan with the dragon blood. And this is what Genichiro-sama is after, and that is why he abducted Kuro-chan. Now here is something I've noticed about the plot so far. The story is way too serious, which makes it boring. A good story needs all kinds of different moods that triggers different emotions to the one experiencing it. A good example of that would be an anime that has shinobis in it. That's right, Naruto. There are times when it gets really intense and your eyes are glued to the screen in awe. There are times when it makes you feel joy with a unique take on anime comedy. And there are of course times where it gets really emotional, with moments that will tug on your heartstrings. Now, Kuro-chan is finally back in our possession, and we are now tasked with finding a bunch of items for Kuro-chan. Okay, not only are you humiliated as a player for having to play as an old man, but now you also have to be a slave to Kuro-chan? You have to pick flowers and collect stones for this little girl so that she can make a perfume. That's like in Final Fantasy VII, if you were a slave the whole game to Marlene and you had to do all this little girl stuff. Would that make the game better? No, it would not! I thought this game was supposed to be about awesome shinobi and samurai, but then they do stuff like this. And you don't even have a choice. Could this be because Okami-dono is too dumb, old and senile to make decisions for himself? I think this wolf needs to be taken to the vet to be put down. So what does Okami gain from doing all this? Well...
タケル様の留飲もまたそなたと共に生きるのだ。
頂戴いたします。
I think this game should have been adults only instead. So we continue on to our next destination, where we meet this man, Kumanon Yisaemon. He is following the sound of a shamisen in order to find its player. And he must have incredible hearing, because even if you increase the volume on your TV, you won't be able to hear a shamisen anywhere. But when you continue on through this path, you will hear a sound of another instrument. And this is something that really bothers me, because this is not the sound of a shamisen, but instead the sound of a shakuhachi, which is a traditional Japanese bamboo flute. But the shamisen is a string-based instrument, and is not even close to the sound of a shakuhachi. Are we even surprised that From Software keeps screwing up at this point? So what else is here to say about Sekiro? Well, since I played through the game multiple times to get all the endings, which I did to see how much worse the game would get, I can say that there are so many bad decisions put into this game that we would be here forever if I had to go over everything I found. So I'm just gonna go over a few things that I found noteworthy. Later on you fight a boss called the Guardian Ape, who farts and throws feces at you. It's just so disgusting. Why would they put something so childish, gross, silly and dumb in a game that is supposed to be serious? They are literally taking a dump on Japanese culture. Also, did they actually make a game where you use a prosthetic arm that doesn't include a rocket punch? What kind of maniac decides to skip this neat feature? The rocket punch is a staple of modern Japanese culture that should not be skipped if there is an opportunity to have one. I have no energy left to complain about this garbage dump of a company right now. But like I said, there are many more things about this game that as a game designer myself makes me shudder. So there you have it. Is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice worth playing? Absolutely not! This game has some of the worst game design and is made by a company made up of Japanese wannabe Western Japanese developers who spit on their own culture and doesn't care about making art. They only care about making a quick buck while making sure to put Japan in a bad light. That is their goal. Kinda reminds me of another fake Japanese company. But that is it for this review. Arigato for watching my swordlings, and have a good night, evening, morning, or day. Moshi mosh! Thank you for watching this video. Now I would like to take a moment to thank all of my patrons for supporting the Sephiroth Sword 57 channel. If you missed my last video, my cover of Devil Trigger, you can click the link to the video right here on this screen. Oyasumi and have a good day. Moshi mosh!